Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stands. It's Manchester United at Brighton and I'm excited about this one. Now, first of all, that's not the team I would go with. That's the predicted lineup I think Ten Hag will go with. But this is a massive game for United. I'm actually quite confident, having done a bit of research on Brighton, and it is difficult to do research on Brighton because they've only played one game under their new manager, and I think he's going to play a different way to the likes of Potter and ZIRKZEE. I mean, just look at the amount of wingers he's brought in. That's a big hint. Also, James Milner in the midfield for Brighton in 2024 doesn't make me think that it's an unsurmountable challenge. I think we also saw signs against Fulham that we probably could play better away from home with the way that we played against Fulham at home. You know, home game, a lot of expectation, but actually there was some high presses, there was a lot of high ball recoveries, and we did move the ball around quite well. But I think that's the key for me, is that he's got to start ZIRKZEE. There's a few got to do this, got to do that. I mean, if you look at that team, De Ligt's not starting, Maguire is. If you look at that team, Mount's out the team and ZIRKZEE's in the team. If you look at that team, Ahmad's back on the bench. And look, these are the decisions that Erik Ten Hag has to make this season. I'm a massive fan of Ten Hag. I fought to keep him, as you know, but also I am probably going to scrutinise him more than anybody because, you know, I think that it's payback time. It's not an empty promise just to back somebody. He's got to deliver, and if he makes bad decisions, he must be called out on that, because this is high stakes. You know, there's going to be other clubs making moves in the next 8 days that could make them very, very strong in relation to that fourth spot that we think we're probably fighting for behind Liverpool, Arsenal and Man City. But I want better than that. And I think that we do have the squad with LIGT coming in to really challenge. But look, you've got to go to places like Brighton and win. And there is a vulnerability about Brighton, which we'll talk about in more depth when we speak about them in a moment. But this is their first game of the season at home. Second game in the Premier League, but their first game of the season at home because they were away to Everton. And yes, their crowd will be up for it, and it'll probably be sunny down in Brighton like it always is when we go there. And they will be up for it. But look at West Ham. Look at West Ham last week. West Ham at home. All those signings, new manager, Villa, they're going to be... I went Villa. I went Villa on the Super 6, and I was correct, because I think that it could take a bit of time. A reset takes a bit of time. Remember, as with Ten Hag, it takes a bit of time. And I think that Man United continuity could get us the 3 points here. And I think I might be completely misreading the room, but I think we've got a really good chance of going there because Brighton are still going to be learning their way under another new manager. Now, look, let's have a look at this team. Why do I think he's gone with it? Well, let's start at the back first. I'll say this. I've said it to you before. De Ligt should start this game of football. At what point do you do the obvious? You've spent 6 weeks trying to get him out of Bayern Munich. You had him at Ajax. He's clearly been picked by Ineos and Ten Hag as the right side of the centre-back pairing that we need. Put him straight in the bloody team. I understand he didn't play against Fulham because maybe he wasn't quite fit, but he's had another 8 days since then. He's got to go straight in the team. I completely disagree, and I know some of you will agree with it, but Maguire played well against Fulham. I agree with that. Drop him. Because if you don't drop him, what are you going to do if he keeps playing well? Like, what if Maguire plays well against Brighton? You can't drop him against Liverpool. What if he plays well against Liverpool and Forest and so on? Like, it never makes sense to me when a manager goes, well, yeah, I have bought this guy to play in the team the way I want to play, but the person who's there because we didn't get this deal done quick enough is doing well at the moment, so I'm going to bench the player I've bought in and just stick with him. And what if he plays well all season? I'll look a right idiot, won't I? Because I actually bought De Ligt to replace Maguire and he's doing well and I didn't need De Ligt in the first place. I've looked a right twat there, haven't I? I sort of did that with Mason Mount last year, didn't I, as well? Oh, bloody hell. What am I like? And that's my point of the stupidity of it. People will say, well, you know, Maguire's playing well, stick him in the team. But I think he'd probably play well against Brighton. Or are you going, stick him in the team until he costs us a win? Oh, yeah, because we can afford that, can't we? Let's keep him in the team until he costs us a goal and we lose, and then we can bring De Ligt in. So we're basically sacrificing a game. I know, I've got an idea. Let's put the centre-back in that we need to play, who needs to get used to this Premier League. Let's go with him and drop Maguire. But I think he will go with Maguire, and I think it's a flawed logic. And look, Maguire played well. It's not really about Maguire. It's about the fact that we've spent £42 million on De Ligt. And if Yoro hadn't got injured, Maguire wouldn't be anywhere near this team anyway. So I think De Ligt should start, but I think he will go with Maguire. And I think it's a flawed logic because we're either going to lose a game to get De Ligt in the team, or at some point he will have to drop Maguire. Otherwise, there was no point in bringing De Ligt in. So, yeah, I've said my piece on that. Obviously, the rest of the back four and the keeper pick themselves. I think the midfield picks itself. Menu, Casemiro and Bruno. And then the front three, well, look, there is a chance that he will go with Mount. Do not be surprised if ZIRKZEE is on the bench and he goes with the same team as started against Fulham. Do not be surprised if he benches Garnacho and ZIRKZEE and puts Ahmad on the wing and puts Mount as this false 10 nonsense, which was actually one of my 3 takeaways from last week in the match reaction. Never play Mount and Bruno again. Long term, it will never work. It doesn't mean it won't work against Brighton, but it will never work. You've got to have a focal point. And Mount and Bruno doing this clever little pressy swap around shit doesn't work. I think Bruno was better when Mount went off. And I think we were better when ZIRKZEE came on. We've got 2 strikers when Rasmus is back. We're not playing a false 9. So forget it. Put ZIRKZEE up front because you're playing against people like Lewis Dunk and Van der Heck who will, you know, they'll swallow them up physically. And we need to have... I was tired last week of seeing Rashford and Ahmad get the ball and sort of go, my fullbacks aren't overlapping and I haven't got a ball into the box. What do you want me to do? ZIRKZEE will benefit the wingers massively. And then that brings us to the wingers where he ain't never dropping Rashford, is he? I don't think Rashford played badly against Fulham. I don't think he played particularly well. I don't think him or Ahmad really were probably the same performance, but we know it's going to be Ahmad on the bench because Garnacho's got to start. So he ain't going to drop Rashford. So I think it will be Rashford and Garnacho. But I'll tell you what, the positive, get your comments in if you disagree, but if with that lineup, I'll tell you what I would go with. But I have to say, if that team is the team that starts, you've got De Ligt on the bench, you've got Mason Mount on the bench, you've got Ahmad on the bench, you know, you're still going to have the likes of Scott McTominay, and, you know, there are other players I can't think of at the moment. But all I'm saying is the bench is getting stronger, and it will only get stronger with the return of Yoro at some point, Rasmus, and obviously Agate coming in. So I say what I said on Wednesday night, sorry. I think we're ready, once Agate's in, to have a real assault on top 4. And the way you do that is by winning games of football like this. What changes would I make to that? Well, you can get your 11s in. Please do. We love that in the preview. Remember, get your 11s in, or what changes you would make. De Ligt obviously plays at centre-back for me. It's about the way we want to play. I want to see us get at Brighton away from home. I want to see us get, you know, really at them. And the reason I would pick De Ligt as well, and it's a little bit about Brighton, Minte and Mitoma played well against Everton. What's his name? Is it Fabian or Fabio? Hertzler, the new manager of Brighton, was at St. Pauli last year in the Bundesliga 2. I think they finished as champions. He's got Minte, he's got Mitoma playing on the wing, and I think he's bought about 4 wingers in as well. And at his previous club, it's all about wing play. It's crazy the amount of wingers they've got, or wide players they've got, whether it's attacking fullbacks or not. This is where I think we've got to be very, very careful, because we don't have Luke Shaw, we don't have a natural left back, and if you put Maguire at centre back, all right, what's his weakness? Turning and running. Brighton have got players that are flair players. Flair players tend to be quick. I think we could do with De Ligt in that back 4 just to give it a little bit more speed, but also a little bit more aggression to go higher up the pitch, so that if they're running at us, they're further away from the pitch, and if they want to go in behind, we've got a sweeper keeper. So I would go with De Ligt. That's that case. Midfield 3 I'm happy with. Wingers, Garnacho on the left, Ahmad on the right, and ZIRKZEE up front. Yes, that means Rashford goes to the bench, but look, honestly, I want competition for place. And Ahmad on the right wing, I think, has been superb for 3 or 4 months, even before the start pre-season. And I think Garnacho's better on the left. So I would go with those. I won't get that. I accept it will be Rashford starting, but that's what I would do. Talking about Brighton, yeah, very difficult to pin down what they're going to be all about. I mean, they had James Milner in the midfield. Danny Welbeck started. Pedro in behind him. As I said, Minte looks very, very different, very, very difficult customer on the right-hand side, and we probably have got Delo there, so he's got to be on it. Matoma obviously missed a lot of last season with injury. Brighton will be energetic. They like to press, they like to pass, but it is a new manager, and it's very, very difficult to sort of pin down how they're going to approach this game, because when you look at the Everton game, even though Everton had Ashley Young sent off in the 66th minute, I think it was, overall possession was still around 60%, and it was around 60% at half-time before Ashley Young was sent off. So possession for possession's sake maybe been a Brighton thing of the past, but it's not necessarily what Brighton are about this season. So I think that it's really difficult. You could be walking into the unknown with Brighton, first home game, new manager, but we've had some really embarrassing results there over recent years. We've had some good ones, but we've had some really embarrassing ones where they've absolutely battered us. I mean, I'll never forget the game where we won it with that penalty. Remember that penalty late on? It was like the 8th minute and it got retaken or something. I can't remember. But they should have beat us about 9-0 that day, and yet somehow we managed to win it. So, look, win by any means, but I think we will win. I actually think we're catching Brighton at a good time. That West Ham thing was an eye-opener last week. New managers, first home game, don't really know each other yet. We've got the continuity of last season. You know, the likes of Bruno and Casemiro and Mainu, they know each other. In our midfield, they do know each other. There are vulnerabilities there, but they know each other. And there's a lot of players on that pitch that know each other. And I think that is so important because we know what's on the horizon next week. Liverpool, which will be a very, very horrible game. And I look at that Liverpool game and I go, if we could win that, having beaten Brighton, wow, 9 points. But if we beat Brighton and we draw with Liverpool, 7 points from the first 3 is not terrible. But if we draw against Brighton or worse, and then you go into that Liverpool game, it's pressure, isn't it? If you don't then beat Liverpool and you've not, you know, you've only won 1 of your first 3. So I think Brighton, I just fancy United to go and do a job on them. And but it is the unknown. It's the big unknown. Get your comments in. Very quick preview there, how we like it. Make sure you smash a like and subscribe and get your comments in. Have you got any difference of opinion on how Ten Hag will go? The only thing I think he might do is pick the same team that played against Fulham. But remember, that team didn't play well. Like, it was 0-0. He had to make changes. I think ZIRKZEE has to start. Has to start. Haven't spoken about it enough, probably. Has to start. He won the game. It would have been 0-0. ZIRKZEE has to start. Get involved. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe. I'll speak to you on the next one.